Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today, with the coupon for resource ships recently resetting, along with the New Year's event going on where you can earn a tiny bit of steel and coal, along with the dockyard event where you can also earn quite a bit of steel and coal, it has come to my attention that there have been many requests for an updated look at my top 5 steel and coal ships list, and that's what we're doing here today, starting off with steel ships on this Monday. So these are my top 5 choice for steel ships. These do go in order, meaning that 5 would be the last one I would suggest that you get, and 1 would be the first one that I would suggest that you guys would pick up for steel, for your hard-earned steel. But before we get into the list, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment down below. We have to feed our algorithm overlords in order to get this video pushed out and get notifications sent out and such. The algorithm likes to see likes and comments, so if you wouldn't mind leaving one down below by hitting the like button and by leaving a comment in the comment section down below, I would greatly appreciate that. So let's go ahead and get started. Just a reminder, this is all 125% my opinion. Just keep that in mind going forward. So getting started at number 5, we have the Tier 10 American light cruiser, the Austin. So the Austin is a steel ship that took me a little while to get. It was one of those that it came out, but I was trying to get the steel for, I think the Mecklenburg. So I had to pass on it until the Puerto Rico dockyard came back around. I was able to get my Puerto Rico token and get the Austin. And wow, this ship is dumb. Like, goofy, dumb fun. It is super gimmicky. It's probably only going to be really viable in random battles, not too much so in competitive. I mean, maybe in like a tier 10 brawl season, just because of how dumb it is when it has its reload booster going. Maybe so. So, the Austin is essentially a grown-up Atlanta, but instead of HE and AP, the Austin gets SAP and HE. And the Austin also has one big change over the other American cruisers, in that its shells have an improved air drag coefficient, and their arcs are also much flatter than the normal American cruiser, or really American shells in general. If you played the American DDs, cruisers, heavy cruisers, light cruisers, battleships, you notice that the shells aren't that fast. They normally have pretty high arcs. The Austin doesn't, which means that you can actually shoot pretty comfortably at range with the Austin, and that helps out a ton when engaging, of course, DDs at medium to long range, or really anything from medium to long range as well, so it's a lot more comfortable in that regard. But the main thing about the Austin is that you get this unlimited main battery reload booster, which gives you an 80% boost to your reload time, which means when you build into it, your guns have about a 1 second reload time for 15 seconds with this reload boost going. And of course you can put things like Halsey on there and get your adrenaline rush going, so you can easily have a sub-second reload time on these guns, which is absolutely ridiculous for 15 seconds, which means that essentially if there's a destroyer in your sights with the improved characteristics of the shells and guns and with the reload booster, they're pretty much dead. Yeah. Not to mention as well that the Austin's also actually pretty decently well armored for a light cruiser. She does have a 30mm belt, which means that she can bounce quite a bit when angled properly if the shells hit her belt. Now, of course, the bow and the stern can easily be overmatched, but that's besides the point. She also gets an improved heal. She gets 10km torpedoes on top of this as well, and you can get her concealment down to a little bit under 10 kilometers, I believe around 9.8. So the Austin's a goofy ship. It's a ship that makes you giggle so hard when you play it, like, because you know it's so dumb. And literally when you don't have the reload booster up, you have an 8-second reload time with your guns. So you have terrible DPM, but then for 15 seconds you're a god, and then you go back to hiding until that reload booster comes off a cooldown. So it's a dumb ship, it's a goofy ship, it's a fun random battleship, and I would recommend eventually picking up. That's why it's number 5 on this list. Alright, going down to number 4, we have the Tier 10 Soviet heavy cruiser, the Stalingrad. A couple of years ago, I would have said this would have been easily my number 1 pick, but with the amount of reworks and just the way that the game's going, and with a lot of the other ships being introduced to Tier 10, the Stalingrad's lost a lot of its, like, not really its thing, but its specialness and its standoutness, because the game's kind of caught up to it. I mean, think about it. When the Stalingrad was first introduced, she was one of the two, at that time, what we call super cruisers, these large cruisers in game. You had her and you had the Kronstadt. And then slowly throughout the years, more and more of these ships kept getting added. They kept encroaching upon her territory. And then we had a couple of major reworks that really hurt her. The Commander rework was probably one of the worst ones for the Stalingrad and all the large cruisers, to now where you can't build into their survivability anymore. And then they flipped around and gave them the battleship burn times. So yeah, the Stalingrad's lost a lot of its tankiness, unfortunately for her, through those reworks and those changes. Now, what makes her extra special, her guns are still very much there. She still has some of the best guns in the game, hands down. These guns hit well above their weight class. You can citadel battleships from maximum range with these guns, thanks to the Soviet ballistics and such of the Stalingrad's guns, and that's still very much here today on the Stalingrad. But since she lost so much of that tankiness and that survivability, she isn't really seen too much in competitive anymore. A lot of times when you do see Stalingrads in competitive, it's like, oh, look, a Stalingrad, it's an easy kill. Because the ship used to be played like, you find an island, you hug it, you point the bow toward the enemy. Because of your improved armor scheme and your survivability, if you had a full build, you could sit on that island for quite a long time, and it would take the team a very long time to kill you, especially again in a competitive mode, in a 7v7 mode. But nowadays, it's like, oh, just throw some HE in his face, he'll burn down in a few minutes. So, yeah. So, you see a lot more Stalingrads and randoms than you do in competitive now, oddly enough. Used to be the inverse. And it's still a fun ship. Like, these guns are still awesome. There's some amazing guns. You will be citadeling anything that shows you broadside that has an exposed citadel, or citadel that your shells can somehow find their way to. I mean, you guys have seen all the clips with the Stalin's guns. I mean, shoot, you'd hit like a GK, like the conning tower, and it somehow citadels the thing. It is that dumb. On top of that, too, you do have DFAA, and you do also have radar. You have 12-kilometer Soviet radar, so that's very useful as well. But again, like we've talked about, there's been more ships that have been added in that can do the same thing now at tier 10, or take the Stalin's place in clan battle. Some tankier ships, some ships that have been treated a bit more kind over the years than the Stalin, but still one I would highly recommend picking up. If they ever start to remove steel ships, which I don't think they will, this probably would be one of the first ones to go, since she is literally like the first steel ship in the game. So there's that to consider too. Again, they haven't said it's going anywhere. I'm just doing a little bit of speculation here with that. So yeah, what I would recommend picking up eventually. It is something to play as Stalingrad and get to be the bias for some time. But watch your sides though. The sides are extremely squishy. You don't want to get caught broadside at all, like I kind of did at the beginning of this gameplay that you're watching now. Alright, on our way down to number 3, we have the tier 10 British battle cruiser, the Incomparable. This is another dumb, goofy, absolutely just ridiculous ship, and it is so much fun. The Incomparable is... the stats on it don't make any sense whatsoever for a ship this large. This is a massive ship. Look how long this ship is. Yet it can go well above 34 knots with a speed boost. It has a 10-kilometer detection range. That's right, this giant battle cruiser, that's bigger than a lot of battleships in game, has a 10-kilometer detect, along with 11-kilometer torpedoes and 6 20-inch guns that look ridiculous on this thing's hull, because it is a battle cruiser, so it is a fairly skinny hull, and if you look at it, when the turrets rotate to the side, they actually hang off the side of the ship. This thing is dumb, and I love it. It has a very low HP for its tier. It's 70,000 HP, but I mean, hey, that's what you get. That's what you gotta pay to get that 34 plus knot top speed out of the ship. You get 6 20-inch guns. You get barely any armor. You do get a couple of super heals there to help you get through it. But this ship is just a hoot to play. I mean, again, it's a battle cruiser with a 10-kilometer detect. You'll be pushing down a flank, and the poor cruisers will be thinking, oh man, there's some DD here or something like that. And then boom, you're up in their face with a 20-inch battleship. Yeah, and of course with the 20-inch guns, you do have the ability to overmatch 32 millimeters of armor, which is very, very good. Very nice to have that on a tier 10 battleship, especially again one this stealthy and one that's this fast as well. This was a real design, never got made obviously, but it's a ridiculous ship, one that's a ton of fun to play, and one that we've used it a couple of times in competitive to varying effectiveness. If you just need something to run down a flank or to be a surprise push later on in the game, it's pretty good for that. It's also really good at kiting, of course, with that excellent concealment. You can dictate easily the terms of your engagement with that 10-kilometer concealment. You do also get the ability to single drop torpedoes as well. That's also nice. You do get a personal hydro. It's a 3-kilometer hydro, so it's not exactly great for providing, widespread hydro coverage of an area for torpedoes, but for personal protection, it's pretty good with how fast maneuverable this ship is. If you have your speed boost going, that is enough warning to dodge most of the torpedoes or anything else that's going to be thrown at you, or give you time to react to spotting a DD and smoke or something like that. It is again surprisingly maneuverable for its size. It's a dumb ship, one that is absolutely ridiculous, makes no sense, but fun to play, and one that I love playing and getting into awkward situations with. It's always a blast when you take this thing out of port. So yes, I would highly recommend you guys pick up the Incomparable as your third steel ship. Alright, going on down to number 2, we have the tier 10 German battleship, the Mecklenburg. The Mecklenburg is one of the best things to happen to the German nation. Imagine having a couple of gears, welding them together, and then having the ability to actually hit your target. That's the Mecklenburg. You get 16 guns with the Mecklenburg, which is pretty much 2 gears slapped together, with actual good dispersion, which is very surprising. So you get 16 of a gear's guns with the German AP, which means that, well, first off, you have 16 guns. Second off, they're still a 305mm gun, so they do pack a hell of a punch when you catch something broadside with the Mecklenburg. This thing is great at deleting cruisers that slip up and show you broadside. There's not a lot of cruisers that can survive 16 gear guns at all. Not to mention as well, it's also stuffed in an FGG hull. So you do have pretty decent armor on there as well for getting into those close engagements. You get torpedoes. You don't get hydro. That would have been a little bit too much, of course, to get your choice of spotter or fighter. So you get pretty much all the other German bolt-ons onto a ship with the Mecklenburg here. Ton of fun to play. The AP is, of course, it's that amazing German AP, hard-hitting, flat-shooting AP. The HE does leave, it's a German HE. It's pretty anemic. It leaves a lot to be desired. But when you have 16 shells, though, even the most anemic HE will still do what it needs to do with 16 shells. And keep in mind, this thing has pretty darn good accuracy. So you're going to be actually hitting what you're shooting at, and you will be setting it on fire and pinning it, depending upon if you're using AP or HE, so you have all that going for you there. Not to mention the secondaries, if you want to build into them, they are there. They are German secondaries, but I would highly recommend building into the main battery guns on this thing, because again, 16 gear guns, those are not to be underestimated at all, either from the person playing the ship or the one going up against it. It's quite potent, it looks dumb, it's fun. It's actually pretty darn good when Tier 10 Ranked comes around. It's very good for that. It did good in the Tier 10 Brawl seasons as well. Would I go and slap this in like a Clan Battles comp or anything? No, probably not. But for just about everything else, it's a really solid ship. Great random battleship as well. And one that's fun to play. Imagine a German ship that can actually hit what you're aiming at. That's the Mecklenburg. Alright, coming on down to number 1, we have the Tier 10 French battleship, the Bourgogne. One of my most recent additions to my steel fleet, the Bourgogne. I've been waiting forever to finally pick up the ship, and it was definitely worth the wait. Bourgogne, imagine an Alsace with more accurate guns with reload booster. That's a TLDR Bourgogne. There's more differences between them than that, like the secondaries are different. If you want a secondary French battleship, that's what the Alsace is for. Bourgogne is more of a main battery gun build, and it definitely shows. And you can definitely see why this thing has the highest average damage amongst the Tier 10 battleships. Accurate French 15-inch guns. And again, that's those French 15-inch shells that hit like 16 or 17-inch guns. They're going that fast. They have those properties with them, and you get the reload booster here as well. So if something slips up, shows you broadside, pop that reload booster. You got 2 or 3 more salvos following that broadside up. Also with HE, something goes bow in, tries to tank your AP shells. You can use the HE. Get one fire going on, they pop HE, you pop your reload booster, throw 2 or 3 more salvos in their face, you got a couple of fires on their ship. It's great for that. Just a great all-around damage to her here. Not to mention, too, it still has the engine boost, so you can run down the flank, catch the broadside of enemy ships very easily with that. And it is a Tier 9 battleship hull at Tier 10, so it's a little lacking on the armor and survivability sides of things, but all in all, a fantastic ship, one I would highly recommend to pick up as one of your first stealth ships, if not the first stealth ship. So guys, that's my 2 cents on stealth ships. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful Monday. If you did enjoy, make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. We're way to 45,000 subs, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. Hope you all have a wonderful Monday. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.